True.
Okay, Obi. But what you say, we know. Maybe at the right time.
Yeah.
But me per se, now know that committee and minister T. Omudi, among the same coin.
Yes.
A dear important, and almost see about 13, 15 recommendations.
Yes.
The minister,
Yes.
any observations? Walk us through all.
Yes.
Then we will start going letter to letter, way bill to way bill, and the people who have brought us this far. Mesremo. Sankomo we no so neti. It is not who has won for the day or who's been shamed for the day. It is how Ghana will come out from this shameful act. Certain individuals, the companies be a pia yakotum. The SSA man yo one a yo nema oyem eshisho and say oshe baby ya port you are the biggest source of electricity free. Na yetimi kura so da yempo da say ECG containers so called ayera. Menya sure say Ghana it's very embarrassing. Men try on you say a year wait time, a year wait time, a year wait time. A hode na wa mana yen kran komo na wodi no. Yentie na yentie ne yemfa mu aba. Na yenhye minister na chi pampe.
We should get to the bottom of this.
We are some suggestions and recommendations which I mentioned, but let us know what's the position of that report.
Before I start, in prior MP a post to be, and I think it's a very reasonable and a sensible.
In prior MP,
your friend is saying
Dr. Brian Champana, Bakuno, teacher no. You know OPK. Okay.
By the time we are beautiful,
Anna, Dominic Bakono teacher in here, why?
Only young Coco, Joseph Frimpong.
Yes, Joseph Frimpong,
only young Coco.
Okay.
Ain't he? The post essentially they say for once on this issue, because of the embarrassment that they might have some mine, and Kiyanfa MPP and this in seminar and
completely.
I sometimes wonder why politicians.
Completely.
And people would laugh to the bank, make money. Now NDC and MPP for and you would realize me share a teaser of what we'll be doing as long as posts they call out, you see the NPP guys on social media very excited. Hey, and Adiano, hey, yes, and this if one we are the other way, and this if one so hey, Obi no, hey, stomach journalism, equalization, way, inti, Obi any aje, Obi nswaye, Obi attack any other. And I'm like, really? Because I've not even said anything.
Nobody's even bothered.
Let an economy far be beyond just something small na me try at the eto. The real story na ewo and man me dey say waka. We based on what we know. We think say yes, the minister took a good initial step by putting the committee together. Committee was a fact-finding committee. But man, based on what we know, we think immediately said the President of the Republic a post on in Team for your press conference. Immediately, I think there should be an immediate, comprehensive forensic audit into this particular issue. The audit should establish the actual numbers we are talking about of containers. But man, the monies involved, and I would use even committee in Nisika for containers. We are talking in excess of $400 million. $400 million. That money can build your friend is a hospital here. What rich? Almost two Eddie money. $400 million. And yes, kaketwa. And we should not sit down and allow
the MPP NDC.
Politicians now, more the minority. Will take over this issue.
No.
The normal MPP NDC. Na Akogu. Nobody will be punished. Nothing. Na amount for.
No.
Esre Ecobank. That should not happen.
No, that's why my plea say.
Yes.
We need to understand this matter. What we are continuously pleading is the sector minister. Number 6, JG, should take up this matter to the next level. Na who say container be any hiding. Ayira. Intimacy say ayira dia. Not clearly.
There's an issue
over there.
And I'll start with said the committee's report. When this report was handed over to the minister, what we heard from the report and say containers 1,300 and something ayera. But there are some more interesting details in this report. We'll deal with that. The other letters are intercepted, man numbers, all over the place. And we ground our call for a forensic audit into this matter. Good. I'll start with the committee members. You were Professor Innocent Senyo Kwesi Akwa, or Associate Professor of Procurement and Supply Chain Management at the University of Cape Coast, on chairman. Mr. Noble Yaoche Adonu, or a managing partner, aka and partners, chartered accountant, or a member. Mrs. Vivian Abla Kali, procurement and supply chain professional, or a member. Mr. Abdul Rahim Swala, Chief Revenue Officer, Investigations, at Ghana Revenue Authority, or a member. Miss Georgette MFA Fuga Esquire, Liberty Law Consult, Accra, or a member. Inti committee in Rio Majuma, sir, and on my note this date, committee was put together on the 31st of January 2025. Dates are very, very important.
31st of January.
31st January this year, 2025. And a committee putting together so Omoejuma. Osha background now, report Neka say, the Minister of Energy and Green Transition, Honorable Minister, in a letter dated 31st January 2025, appointed the members of the committee to conduct an investigation into the clearance status of the estimated 2,500 containers, procurement, contract and transactions between ECG and Haptel Limited. This follows a public discussion of the matter after an announcement by the Honorable Minister on the state of the power sector, ECG's procurement issues, and the agreement with Haptel, which may not be in the interest of the state. On the scope of work, ascertain the circumstances leading to the hold up of the 2,500 containers at the Tema port. Ascertain. Circumstances containers they call doors in port. Number 2, confirm the contract that resulted in the demurrage containers. Number 3, establish the values of the contract of these demurrages. Number 4, examine ECG's procurement practices, procedures and processes used for the acquisition of these goods and services. Number 5, review ECG's procurement contract for the supply of goods and services.
Review?
Yes, review. Number 6, submit a report on findings on the above and advise Honorable Minister on optimal procurement practices to prevent inefficiencies and wastages in the future. In this report, in 3 parts. Number 1, on the containers. And in the dodoa, port, and why they claim say Ebiaira, and number 1. Number 2, ECG procurement processes. Procurement processes, whether they go by the Public Procurement Act or not, or my review of that. And number 3, a Haptel contract. But for the purpose of we'll focus on the containers. And then later we'll come to the other parts. Good. Into executive summary of key findings in the containers at the port. Number 1. Management negligence caused the hold up of ECG containers at the ports, incurring demurrage to the tune of over 909,578,400 Ghana cedis.
And it talks about management negligence.
Negligence. Good. Because the excuse of lack of funds is not supported by the facts. Lack of funds, because later on in the report, the lecturer said ECG claims no muniska and it now contains the port one or more enclave. Good. Number 2, the committee in its discussions with the directors observed that the issue of over-procurement in ECG was exacerbated when the procurement directorate was merged with the premises and estate directorate in 2023 to become the procurement premises and estate directorate.
What happened to us in the
ECG now? One of the 13 directors, now about procurement director, and about estate and Premises Directorate. But omo meje. Why we don't know?
Okay.
We don't know.
Okay.
Good. The Director of Procurement, Premises and Estate further admitted during discussions with the committee that majority of the containers held up at the port were procured during his tenure.
Wajitum.
Yes, wajiatum. According to the report.
So then, who was the director? The measure of two positions.
Yes.
Nipa no.
Nipa no ye in charge of premises and estate.
Okay.
On after be a director.
Procurement.
Okay. He became the director. But committee now funny din and share report.
Okay. All right.
Good.
But we have the name.
Sure. Sure. The Director of Procurement, Premises and Estate stated inter alia that indeed ECG procured in excess of its demand, but intimated that this was due to pressure and influence from above.
Okay.
Meaning say ojitu mu say nioma ECG procure na ebro de no mu hia so. But I was saying
na say na pressure free. Okay.
Esro krono. Good. The Director of Procurement, Premises and Estate also suggested that this pressure and influence was from the then Managing Director.
The then Managing
Director.
So the then Managing Director, no?
Yes.
Not
that should be Dubik Mahama. If in 2023, and the decision was taken to merge there, then Dubik was the then
But if it was the then, why was he taking pressure from him? It was then. He was no more.
Yes.
So what is the issue here?
Into why does he think
yeah, because you are in charge now.
Okay. Because the then Managing Director, based on the timelines they are dealing with, mind you, say Dubik resigned.
Yeah, but
and the Director of Commercial Services was made the acting MD. Into we don't know here if a acting MD na nasane Dubik.
Okay, good.
But almost the then Managing Director.
Okay, good.
That this was due to I'll say the then Managing Director who awarded contract to specific suppliers without subjecting them to competitive processes.
Okay.
Number 6.
So the then is not known.
Yes.
Okay.
The container hold-up situation was created to enable the award of clearing contract to the tune of 159,650,000 Ghana cedis to third-party service providers, even though ECG had a functional shipping unit that is capable of clearing the held-up containers from the port.
They have it.
Yes.
But they chose to bring third parties. But ECG has it.
They are self-declarant. ECG now can clear. They have a unit.
Okay.
The committee is stating, say, based on investigations, they saw, say, almost share dama containers ne car port will be said, they be me, Eddie Jumanama.
But they had a functional unit.
A functional unit. Yes, that's what the report says. Number 7. The content of the ECG containers piled up at the port include meters. In the normal containers, meters, conductors, poles, transformers, cables, amongst others. In the normal port, and these are very critical equipment at ECG here.
Yes, because can you under pressure from above into JSS.
Yeah, JXS. Good. A clearing contract to the tune of 127,650,000 Ghana cedis was awarded to a company which was not a registered customs house agent, even though ECG itself is a self-declarant. Means the ECG na bet ma clear omunioma, but omo company according to the committee, our company na omo registered as a customs house agent.
The company didn't buy.
Edino need this. Maybe subsequently in the way the company's name will be mentioned. Good. ECG could not account for at least 1,346 containers valued at 489,999,000 in the 489,099,241 and 62 cents.
How many containers on?
1,346.
Okay, this is the committee's report.
Committee's report. Value $489 million.
Okay,
good. Which hold goods of high value such as transformers.
They watch it.
Containers.
Very, very urgent for the ECG.
Very urgent, very expensive. Neoma. Number 10. Even though the reason given by ECG for not clearing the containers promptly was due to lack of funds, ECG managed to award a contract to award a contract to and pre-financed one of the clearing agents, Mint Logistics Limited, with 30 million Ghana cedis.
Are you reading it well?
Yes. Even though the reason given by ECG for not clearing the containers promptly was due to lack of funds, ECG managed to award a contract to and pre-financed one of the clearing agents, Mint Logistics Limited, with 30 million Ghana cedis.
What was the basis for the pre-financing?
Yes, sir. Yeah, Mausika said, yeah, person will clear containers or port.
ECG.
Yes.
They don't have money
to clear. But for the third party contract and your mama is car on Fanco clear.
And the third party is what?
Mint Logistics Limited.
Okay. We know the people behind Mint Logistics?
No. And let me add and announce now, sir, we will be filing an RTI request to the Register of Companies. We want to know the directors of this company.
In fact, we want to be sure of the names we have here.
Good.
Yeah.
The directors of this company, the beneficial owners of this company, because said your report where cano na company no any omonya registered as even a customs house agent, but they were given a contract of that value
and pre-finance.
And subsequently, you would hear the number of containers they were to clear.
Okay.
You hear the number of containers they were to clear.
Okay.
Good. Dawat Bond Limited fraudulently cleared 47 containers out of the port without following due process of paying duties, taxes to the state. Out of the 47 containers, the company delivered only 46 to ECG. Dawat Bonds Limited is currently demanding an amount of 5,290,000 Ghana cedis from ECG for the services rendered.
For the benefit of your IAT, how do they fraudulently? I want to know, how do they do it?
The report doesn't give details of what they term fraud. But Sisiano, we've mentioned two different companies.
Mints.
One company, Mint Logistics Limited.
And Dawat.
And Dawat Bond.
Okay.
You would later on realize, say, Dawat Bond were given a contract to clear a certain number of containers. And Mint and so were given a contract to clear a certain number of containers.
Dawat, was there anything pre-financing?
No, pre-financing.
Mint, they were.
Mint pre-financing.
Pay the report.
Pay the report. Unfortunately for you, the report in data, the contract were signed.
Okay.
But at least from Yansui investigations, we know data, these contracts
were signed. Yeah.
Good. Also, the container hold-up situation was created to... No, I think I've read this one. This fraudulent clearance of 47 containers implies that Dawat Bond Limited evaded duties and taxes to the tune of 4,799,763 Ghana cedis and 43 pesos. In the Dawat and also company, would also be filing a request on them. Amongst who are the owners, who are the directors of this particular company. Very, very important. Na yetimi ehu. One other thing, and subsequently, we would ask that question, Oman, say, they were given specific contracts to clear containers. Mint Logistics, containers na yekase clear, emu saying, and I'll clear. Document cover the clear anyway. ECG for answer kind. Omoma letter acknowledge receipt of our containers.
That should be the process.
That should be the process. Dawat and so what they are clear in a way.
Contract ben
all of those questions now will come subsequently.
Okay.
By Twaso. ECG into containers at the port. Executive summary. This is what it says about the containers at the port.
All right.
But the Obiabe Busa the details of containers, any discrepancies in the numbers. Mamemfa wonko in this in this particular report.
Okay.
Very, very interesting. Key findings. Management, and where your free executive summary have the details, no? Because in the executive summary on the containers in the end, they are canning in our procurement procurement act nonsense. So you have by Emra on details for containers. No? Number one, ECG decided to use cost insurance and freight as their preferred Incoterm in engaging local suppliers of foreign goods, requiring that ECG clears the containers upon arrival at the port.
Okay.
To facilitate this, management decided to set aside and transfer 5 million Ghana cedis each week into a shipping account to be used by the shipping department in clearing ECG containers that arrive at the port.
Okay. This time they are dealing with their own ECG.
Yes.
Okay.
And when management take a decision, say, clear they were given 5 million Ghana cedis every week. Normally are clear. The committee noted that this initiative greatly assisted with containers being cleared without them piling up at the port. Because investigations also say, Oman, some of the containers are piling up at our port, and some of them date as far back as PDS time.
PDS.
This is 2017, 2018 time. And again, that is why I say, we still need further, this time, a forensic audit of the containers and the numbers. But let's continue. However, management in 2022 stopped transferring the 5 million Ghana cedis into the designated shipping account. 2022. The containers then started piling up at the port due to the unavailability of funds to clear them.
But they were given funds, 5 million,
yes,
and they stopped
every week. And the management takes this and say, giant first come go account.
That's when 2022,
according to this report. And the management and they claim that is where the container started to air pilot up at the port.
Okay,
good. The Materials and Transport Directorate raised the issue at a management meeting, but received the response that, quote, there were no funds.
Response from?
From management meeting.
Okay. So the Materials and Transport Directorate.
Yes. Who is represented by a director, because management directors in the forming management.
We all know the director.
Sure. The Materials and Transport Directorate wrote at least 3 memos appealing to management to release funds to enable them to clear the containers. However, no response has been received from management regarding these appeals.
Okay, that's 2022.
2022, Urban. Inasmuch as the containers kept piling up with resultant demurrage coupled with management excuse.
When they say kept piling up, does it mean they were still
They were still procuring containers.
Only container in fuel. But Musa
Good.
Okay.
Good. You've caught the picture very well. It was in as much as the containers kept piling up with resultant demurrage coupled with management excuse of the unavailability of funds, ECG through the then managing director continued awarding new CIF contracts.
Then managing director
yes.
is who?
It is not named here.
Okay.
But you can look at the timelines, and hazard a guess.
So then managing director should be tossed between
either Dubik or David.
David or Dubik.
Good.
Okay.
Good. Also continued awarding new CIF contract without using competitive procurement methods.
Okay.
Requiring the payment of 90% of the contract sum when the supplier submits the shipping documents.
Okay.
Good. Per customs law, consignments that are not entered for clearance after 21 days of discharge at the port are registered under uncleared cargo list, UCL, and therefore become the property of the state.
Of the state. Uncleared.
Yes. In the ones a go beyond 21 days.
By in the name of ECG, bro, 21 days.
Yes.
Customs in Shisha, which is
under UCL. Uncleared cargo list. Good. A honest how uncleared cargo list now mostly on auction near man. Uncleared cargo list. Good. Containers that remained uncleared for a period of time attract demurrage charges payable to the shipping lines. The number of containers on UCL kept rising with exponential increase in demurrage.
What is the challenge here? Because I don't get it.
By December 2024, the number of ECG containers on uncleared cargo list had totaled 2,491 containers.
Why was it happening so?
Now we were procuring a bar. But
the materials are relevant for ECG because transformers and cables and all those.
Yes.
But okay. The first one you read, had they recognized it?
We'll come there.
Okay.
We'll come there.
Okay.
Note the figure. Almost say
2000.
By December 2024. Now ECG containers on UCL list, uncleared. Now 2,491. Management wrote to the Commissioner General of Ghana Revenue Authority for restoration, and the request was subsequently granted. The Materials and Transport Directorate initiated negotiations with the shipping lines with respect to waivers of demurrage cost, and had a favorable deal from the shipping lines. The shipping department began processing the affected containers for clearing and reached the point of payment. But management failed to allocate funds for this exercise.
Again.
2 clearing agents, Mint Logistics first, followed by Dawat Bond Limited, were introduced to the shipping department by the then managing director through the Director of Materials and Transport as companies contracted to clear the UCL containers.
But that goes beyond the first one, Obekacha said. The second one had no right, was not properly, or he fraudulently entered.
Yes.
So why is he being introduced as their reps?
So I'm reps. Into one, containers ni go ECG units ne per se omokwa clear. Yes, you niska. And the management introduces 2 private companies, Omo and Emramekle, according to this report again. Subsequently, Mint Logistics was awarded a contract to clear Omantie number 1,110.
1,110. That's the report.
Yes, ECG UCL containers. Mint was to clear 1,110.
Uncleared containers.
Yes. At 160,000 Ghana cedis per container.
160,000?
Yes. Intimumbo mame.
160 by 1,000.
160,000 by
160,000.
Yes, by 1,110 containers. And now, so much me cleaning na sika ECG ATM for their services. And no, please get me that figure. Dawat Bond Limited was also awarded a contract to clear 200 containers in 4 weeks.
200?
Yes, in 4 weeks. At 115,000 Ghana cedis per container. Into contract, there are 2 companies now. The 2 clearing agents started profiling all ECG containers on UCL. And please, moon check it Dawat the end so 115 times 200. And so mama me sa figure no. Na mama me a mint there 1,110 containers per 160,000 Ghana cedis. The committee noted during discussions that in as much as management indicated there were no funds to clear the piled up containers at the port, they awarded contracts to these clearing agents mentioned above and made some payment.
Which people made the payment again?
The management of ECG.
But what is the problem here?
But the committee payments are making.
But they made the payment.
Yes, and that's why forensic auditor here qualify very important. The decision of management unfortunately rendered the shipping department of ECG almost redundant because private.
It is redundant. It is not almost. It is redundant.
Committee need you almost.
It is because Ejuma Yamamo 5 million every week to do. No,
yes.
Yakati says then we are pre-finance will be there, asset will be there. Come on.
Key findings: actual number of containers at the port.
Okay.
Number 1. The committee obtained the list of containers from the Director of Materials and Transport of ECG, the Director of Ports, and the manager responsible at the Meridian Port Services Terminal at the Tema Port. The committee physically counted the containers and compared them to the list obtained and found various degrees of discrepancies.
Physically counted?
Yes, containers and our port. Okay. After sending a list from ECG, or list from the director of ports, and a list from the manager responsible for Meridian
they
Port Services.
Physically counted.
They also went to physically count.
Okay.
See below the results of the containers counted and the degrees of discrepancies. List of containers obtained. GPHA list say ECG containers what GPHA and what port near 1,132. ECG so list say containers what port 2,462.
ECG no.
Yes. Or see containers here 2,462. GPHA also say ECG containers what port here 1,132. Containers assessed and counted by the committee. Committee ne koko kain GPHA dieno omu say 1,134 into a variance of two
containers.
Yes. ECG dieno so no ECG number no a omu de ma won no omu ko kain ye no omu say okay 1,134 containers ne wo a variance of 1,328. In the ECG say your containers here 2,462 and the go port ano. Committee no who say 1,134. In the difference near 1,328.
That's the difference we have.
That's the difference. And that is why the committee in a report minister no and say 1,328 containers cannot be accounted for. Oman almost neither GPHA nor ECG could account for the 1,328 containers at the time of writing this report. And that is why we are where we are at the moment. Say, these number of containers are nowhere to be found. But man, the attraction of Sokakra NSA. Number one, a contract was given to two companies. In fact, we can say on authority say the was bond or the contract was signed in November 2024. And they had 1 month to clear 200. In fact, according to the committee, omutimi clear 46. 46 nipo committee ne say unze omutime say fraudulent. The question is simple, man. That was my contract say clear 200 containers. Saying our clear. O clear no o de call him. But on that contract za fako ECG warehouse. O de call. O de call in ECG my letter acknowledge receipt and I debit. That case is settled. And that's why we think say further investigations will be needed because the committee where Jumano my in further information.
And I make say we know you have to see really out this first.
Yes.
So that what we have unraveled in terms of agreement between ECG and these parties, because clearly ECG and what we have unraveled ECG, they advance money to Mint.
Sure.
They didn't pay before or after to Dawas.
Of course.
Nothing.
Of course. No, the committee confirms that.
Nothing.
The committee report confirms that.
And the committee Nasaka said Dawas no fraudulently But if you go into the ECG books, clearly they have an official working relationship with ECG.
Of course.
It is the committee's report.
Of course.
And then what we have also found out on the grounds, plus other ones, there is a need for us to do a check.
Absolutely. Because I have contract for freight forwarding and cargo clearing. Contract number between Electricity Company of Ghana Limited and Dawat Bond Limited, November 2024.
Okay.
That contract
you have it there.
Yes, that contract is there. There is a contract
between ECG and Dawat. So it cannot be a fraudulent entity.
The committee says a fraudulent. Unfortunately, there is not much information to ground the fraud. And America say that's why we need a bit more information.
But here is OB lawyer reading out a contract between Dawas and then that of ECG. And then again they saying that whether before or after there has not been any payment. And the committee also talks about a fraudulent Dawas entering into the zone, picking containers.
And say, to even deal with whether Omo is fraudulent or not, Oman, when you move containers, there is a paper trail.
Okay.
What they call ECG warehouse.
Okay.
They will give you a letter acknowledging receipt.
Okay.
It's simple, it ends
Okay.
it.
Okay.
It is a Yatimia deliver containers. Now, any Muma 200. We've been able to deliver 47, 46. These are the paper trails.
Okay.
It ends.
Okay.
And then on Mint and so on, Mint the end they were given a contract to clear 1,110. Oman. The question is, how many did they clear?
Mint.
Omoni
a pre-finance.
Yes, yeah, pre-finance omo. Omo clear saying, omo clear no omo di kogu hin. Containers ne wa hin. Is there a paper trail? ECG omo letter acknowledging receipt of those containers and now
in all
this,
where was Dubik, David, Yafrimpong, Ben, where were all these actors? Because Yenisika, you started 5 million payments. Yes. The committee's report, they did capture what the legal position or department of ECG said. I'm only seeing the material and transport.
Yes.
Transport.
Yes.
I'm only seeing the MD. No? So I'm saying that. So these players, no,
Enti Sawusha committee in a report now. Omoka, the people they spoke to.
Okay.
Let me read that bit. No?
Okay.
Na Obia enye clear in his or her mind.
Okay.
Enti Omoka wahase below is a list of activities performed in executing the assignment. The committee engaged directors of ECG to understand the procurement procedure in the company.
Okay.
Omanhene directors crop.
Okay.
They didn't also stay so more engaging managing director. No?
Okay.
But I think it's only fair.
But you have been there before.
Yes.
So when we say directors, it's directors.
Oh yeah, directors.
Yeah.
Directors. Once you're managing director, you have directors.
Yeah.
Good. Into managing director no ewo hoba. They say we are managing director say materials and transport BBA. Omo director.
Okay.
Director na yen nyoma no dey abeto MD then you hwe mu a then you
okay it.
Into I'm saying say if you name the then MD now, then you should have spoken to the then MD. And so for the side.
But that's what I'm saying, that the then MD is still not a part of it.
Yes.
But directors are speaking.
Yes.
So who was then that MD?
The then MD. The name is not mentioned in the report.
Okay.
But Omo engaged directors, I'll say, reviewed documents submitted by the directors. They conducted site visits to Tema Port to ascertain, verify, and conduct a physical count of ECG containers on the undeclared cargo list. Evaluated the sourcing and contracting processes leading to the selection of suppliers. Reviewed procurement and contracting documents used for the acquisition of goods, works, and services. Analyzed the cost expended and revenues accruing to ECG to determine the value or benefit from the engagement with suppliers. Identified and discussed observations, gaps, and recommendations with relevant stakeholders. And conducted site visit to ECG's warehouse in Tema.
Okay.
Into Amukwa warehouse. So and that's why I'm saying, sir, if they went to the warehouse, then we should be furnished with info as to say a coin. Okay, containers and almost a clear in our warehouse.
Okay, so baby, I do this. This is ECG. We have a shipping unit. We adopted. We don't have money.
Yes.
We made it a redundant unit.
Yes.
We engaged the services of Mint and Dawas. One, the committee claims was fraudulently worked with. The other, the committee says ECG pre-financed.
Yes.
And now the number of or quantity of containers was spelled out.
Yes.
Now the difference between the committees and that of ECG, 1,130 and 2,400 something, down. But there's a difference.
There's a difference.
Between ECG and the committee,
yes.
There's a difference.
There's a difference.
Okay, so, but
between ECG, GAPOHA,
and the committee, there's a difference.
There is a difference on Muntimi accounted for.
There's a difference on Muntimi accounted for. But ECG, the end for the figure. ECG figure stands at 2,456. Okay. So when we get to the physical accounting, we are getting
328. That we are getting a difference of 1,320. And that's the unaccounted.
Okay, so maybe I do know.
Yes.
Where did the minister
Good.
Good.
Inti, you realize that such a date being so 31st January.
Yeah.
That was the date our minister put it committee together. Nobody can visit a portal. I'm a grantee interview say 2,500 plus containers in a eguha. Inti or set committees or munyan shemuna or mumayan who say I'm passing 2,500 containers in the guho good. Oman committee no more ye omajuma. Committee ni gusu ye omajuma na. And who's a committee in a report and a kind.
That is 31st.
31st when we start here.
Okay.
We then intercepted letters via time a committee in your Majuma. 3 letters actually. Number 1, even mienu every national security.
Okay.
And a bakun every minister.
Okay.
National security, and the first one is dated 12th February 2025.
31st January 2025.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. 31st January 2025. And away 12th February 2025.
Okay.
And these letters now will ground our call for why we think there should be a forensic audit to reconcile the numbers. Because as we speak, ECG number
2,400 something.
Gapoha number enko. You can't ECG dieno. There is a difference of 1,328. They are unaccounted for you. National Security so send it 2 letters. Omo kwako evacuate containers before.
Under whose instructions the coin?
In the first letter nini. It's dated 12th February 2025.
So in all this, Dubik is not in play. Apia is David is not in play. Frimpong is not in play.
Yes.
Ben is not.
Management. ECG management.
Okay, all these, they are not in. Okay. So we will come and deal with the decisions they took as to whether it was in the interest of ECG and Ghana by extension.
Even the fact of breaching procurement.
Okay. So we'll come to that aspect. But let's follow this one keenly. Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
This letter is dated 12 February 2025. It was received by the Golden Jubilee Terminal on the 19th of February. It was received by the Director of Port Tema 18th February. By the General Manager Port Operations Enzo Received 18th February. Letter is addressed to the Director General Ghana Port and Harbours Authority, Accra. Request for assistance to evacuate ECG containers.
From?
Your outfit is by this letter informed of the decision by the National Security Council Secretariat to evacuate 240 containers and properties belonging to the Electricity Company of Ghana to its premises at Abelempi.
What was the basis for that information?
It is not stated. In this regard, a request is kindly made for a rich staker to enable the Secretariat carry out its operation. Kindly find attached a copy of the bill of entry for your perusal. Regards. This is signed by Osman Abdul Razak. Osman Abdul Razak, the National Security Coordinator. This letter is copied to... Yes.
Osman Day.
Abdul Razak, National Security Coordinator.
Oh, man.
Yes.
Okay.
This letter is copied to Honorable Minister, Ministry of Transport, Accra. Commissioner General, Ghana Revenue Authority, Accra. Letter we no na kakra because onim say the containers no ECG containers. The Ministry of Energy had instituted an investigation.
That's the ending one of 31st
January.
And this is 12 February.
12 February.
Okay.
If National Security per se omuko containers nibia, what do you think is the right
The
thing?
communication should come from the ministry.
And I say it should go to the ministry.
Okay.
Say yes, we know say investigations be say you but we want to clear so and so containers. The question on this letter NSA
the 240
yeah. Were these containers cleared? If they were cleared, when we go to Abelempe premises of National Security CCR, sa containers a $1 million question.
If the containers were cleared, their destination was to the Abelempe. So if indeed
Abelempe.
Okay.
And if 240 was cleared, is 240 part of
the difference?
1,328.
And I say ECG. Okay.
And also another question.
Okay.
That's why a forensic audit to reconcile these numbers is important.
So this was straight from the National Security
to the Port Director General.
Okay.
Where are the first letter?
Okay.
12th February 2025. 240 containers.
Okay.
The second letter, 7th March 2025. And also addressed to the Director General, Ghana Port and Harbours Authority. Request for assistance to evacuate 706 ECG containers. You are kindly informed of plans to evacuate the list of attached containers belonging to the Electricity Company of Ghana to the Abelempe warehouse of the National Security Council Secretariat.
Who directed that?
When so is signed by Osman Abdul Razak, National Security Coordinator.
So,
but also meanwhile, all port charges be suspended on the said containers pending outcome of ongoing investigations on same. Indeed, they acknowledge Wasana investigations air coso. Regards. Copied again to Honorable Minister, Ministry of Transport, Commissioner General, Ghana Revenue Authority, Commissioner Customs Division, Assistant Commissioner, Intermodal Shipping Agency, Maersk, Ghana, blah, 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 blah. And in this letter, Oman attach stock of ECG UCL containers at Terminal 2. Container 706 containers, no? A BR number, specific the containers they wanted to go and evacuate from the port. Again, the question is that in this letter, even though they recognize Senate investigations, the energy minister was not copied in this letter.
The energy minister was not. ECG does not even come into the picture at all.
Yes, they were also not copied in this letter. Okay. In the investigations are ongoing.
So we have 400 and we have 706.
Yeah, well, 240 and a
706. 706.
Yes.
Okay.
Mienu. Oka 240 and 706 bomwa. Domain 240 plus 706. Saying Mumbo Emfa 240 plus 706. Amount number saying 240 plus 706. Okay. 940. 46. Good. In the 946 containers so far, and I pair these two letters, no, National Security, yes, on be evacuated from the port.
Okay.
The question is that. Yes.
Between committee, no, and ECG, no difference in saying
1,328.
Okay. And you can't. The National Security for a clear no saying
946
into ECG 248 no ana
enomu 946 and I say 1,328 now
okay
and no now
okay so
I think a very legitimate question and that's why we need to reconcile these figures but the overarching question the say 946 containers we National Security echo evacuate ampa omu evacuate and ewa belempe ho ampa NSC kwa belempe ho you betima kan sa 946 containers ne wo ho ana.
Okay, we need to audit that. That's what it says. Any problem? Yes.
Good. In the second letter, National Security, then there is a third letter. Time and investigations committee ne yo madwuma. The committee had entered the Minister of Energy. Say boundary meters be ewo containers mu egu ho I no so no demurrage eka ba ho inti minister enhwentro letter na ECG your friends say omo clearing agent no inti me enclear sa containers in free ho in the minister letter enie oman it's dated 19th February 2025 by this time, that committee in Ejumane, because in fact, you realize in this letter, say the committee had hinted the minister.
Okay.
Say,
so it is based on the committee's hint.
Yes.
And the minister
Good.
Okay.
Superintendent of Police, Marine, Port, and Railways Department, Ghana Police Service, Tema. Request for immediate clearance of 75 containers owned by the Electricity Company of Ghana, ECG, at the port. Reference is made to the directive dated 30th December 2024 and reference letter issued by the Marine, Port and Railways Department of the Ghana Police Service in Tema. The Ghana Revenue Authority Customs Division, Tema, was instructed to prohibit all clearing agents/agencies except Dawat Bond Limited from clearing containers or consignment belonging to ECG.
Except?
Yes.
What was the basis for that exception? Okay.
By way of minister and a letter,
okay.
Eddie Akoma, Superintendent of Police. This directive impacted Mint Logistics, one of the clearing agents engaged by ECG to manage the clearance of containers or consignment on its behalf. As a result, the company was unable to clear 75 containers out of the port to the ECG warehouse necessary to finalize the operation. Giving the agent necessity of these materials for power supply, we respectfully request your assistance in facilitating the clearance of the 75 containers managed by Mint Logistics Limited, currently held at the port. These containers have completed all required customs clearance processes and all applicable fees have been paid in full. However, their release is still pending due to existing directives despite adherence to all stipulations. We request your directive to be issued to the relevant authorities to facilitate the immediate release of these containers, as their extended stay at the port is causing unnecessary delays and financial repercussions. We, however, advise that this clearance and release should be conducted under the supervision of the technical committee constituted by the Ministry to investigate the circumstances leading to the overstay of ECG containers at the port. The declaration bill of entry dated 2509-2024 from the Ghana Revenue Authority Customs Division is attached for your reference. We appreciate your immediate attention to this matter. Signed, Honorable John Abdullah Jenapo, Minister of Energy and Green Transitions, Wakopi Chief of Staff, Jubilee House, Accra.
So this has a copy to the Chief of Staff?
Yes, to the Chief of Staff.
Okay, so
and the Minister was requesting for 75 containers to be cleared. Again, the question is that, and this clearance was to be done under the supervision of the Technical Committee and investigations. Were these containers cleared? If they were cleared, where were they sent? Because they were to be sent to ECG.
Before you even get to whether they were cleared or otherwise, which containers were this? I still want to know. The 75. Was it a part of the 1,000 and so or it was the so here the minister had sidestepped Mint and Dawas, is that correct?
Yes.
And then the loading of the containers should be done in collaboration with the committee, technical committee.
Yes.
Okay.
In the 75 containers, were they cleared? Yeah, clear. You call ECG warehouse.
Because was the instructions to clear them to ECG?
To ECG, sure. In this letter, to ECG. Enti Oman, ya kind 3 letters. 3 letters ni nyina. There are a number of containers at play. Already, Yediki Busa say, your friend is a Mint Logistics, 1,110 containers, no, omo clear ewahin. That was 200, no, omo clear ewahin. All of these numbers, no, would have to be reconciled against 1,328. Now, committee in each more, ayira yehuno. All of these things we need, and that's why, man, a yes serious say. Guess who has entered our studios? The MD, immediate pass, MD of ECG and our rescue. But my question is, now you have different numbers.
Okay.
Minister and the committee, was set. Committee now your majuma. It is clear. Say even time a committee in here, Juma.
No, chief.
Evacuations be being done.
Yeah.
And we cannot just rely on committee in a report.
But
we have to we have to commission another forensic audit to reconcile these numbers. Knowing, say, some private companies were asked questions, were given contracts under the SWAL ECG management to do a certain job. Omo clear containers no ana.
Okay.
Say you. 2 companies.
Okay.
National Security, the minister, and the so.
Okay. I'm just following what the minister and his team say.
Yes.
And the national security for me. I think that the national security team omo ko Dowenya was here for almost omo ECG and I say almost no, based on what they have said.
Yes.
So another
yes.
We are talking about missing containers, but I can tell you with what you've read to me. There be Bibia di wa ayira o. The usual among your seven and who here no.
Yes.
The usual we leave people to keep talking and misrepresent the situation. Not the real actors in the because this is the national security. Omo so makoye soup. E o miamia bia. Sa nyoma na ye ka se ayira no. Omako identify say di bi kra. So there na ayira.
And the other idea back on say in all the conversation, including the committee's report, and I think that is one thing as well, the committee would probably have to come and provide answers to. In all committee in Ejumano, and when you go through the report, there is no mention of national security evacuations now.
Ekosuno.
Almost say
Ekosuno.
As to say
but they were
but there was no mention
but they were directed that they should be part of that evacuation by national security.
It was just for the 75 containers.
But that's what I'm saying, for the 75.
For the 75, no, they were supposed to be.
But the other two, no.
But the other two,
they were on the blind side of the minister.
Whilst the investigations were ongoing, and the committee never mentioned side evacuation anywhere.
But that's why I'm saying that my other surprise is that when the national security led the minister and other people to go to that place, almost so much ECG, why are we saying that when we know that Muama Kwakoshe, say, Abrofu India for the China for me, I say, Obi, the other one, Obi Akotoamo. A very dangerous statement, Obi Akotoamo. So I feel that Mama shine sir MPP NDC and Tunche.
No, these are serious
I'm telling you
issues.
because Obi
and what's the politics
Debbie because him you should munukran baby I could do nukrano. If what we are hearing and what we know is the right thing there, maybe even those people who come to money as we speak now, maybe they're out of the country. When we go deeper, because we are also picking intel about the presence of certain security personnel outside the country, or move follow up on this matter.
And that is why I think, Sir Oman, to be able to ascertain the actual numbers, containers are a core ECG, containers are a port, containers are national security evacuatee, containers are minister car say committee in National Muni 75. To be able to ascertain where all, because if there are letters to show, say, ye containers be free baby. Where are those containers? Are they part of the numbers? And I say, baby. And that's why I think, say, urgently, even if it will take His Excellency the President,
the minister is capable.
No,
His Excellency. The minister is capable.
Even if it will take the President to call for this forensic audit, for us to know the whereabouts of these containers, and then wide net, everybody is involved. Obia, from national security to the.
But who investigates the national security? Who watches the watchman?
It's a forensic audit. They won't call for a bit myself.
Well, but I have a big worry. My worry is, and I don't know why I would say common of firm, but when you could do because clearly there's a report that is indicted in court. You in a way.
Yes.
Yeah, just our report.
There is this part of the report. What's I making? Key findings, almost a possible theft and auction of ECG containers. I will committee in the report.
Bobby,
let me read this quickly. Number one. The committee noted during discussions with staff of Mint Logistics Limited and Dawat's Bond Limited the issues of possible theft and auction of the containers owed by ECG. The committee further observed that the prolonged stay of the containers at the port exposes the contents to all forms of security risks, including theft and expiration, among others. During the committee's visit to the Tema port, to ascertain the actual number of containers, it was noted that a number of containers had been opened and some of the items removed. Into committees port, not containers. Customs regulations allow the auctioning of uncleared goods listed under UCL after a specified period due to unpaid duties or abandoned shipment. We see another very important point. were there any auction? Because say uncleared goods a good port at auction because we need to find out that.